You know, the crazy thing is I never set out to pick a fight with anybody, let alone a full-blown HOA president who thought she was queen of the block. All I wanted was a little peace, a touch of security, maybe a chance to slow life down after years of chasing deadlines and managing crews. But I guess I should have known peace doesn't come easy when you've got folks like Karen Morrison running your neighborhood like a personal fiefdom. Yeah, that happened. Let me back up a sec. So here's how it started. One of those blue-skied mornings, late fall, crisp air that makes you want to build something. You know, I just put the last bolt into this gorgeous wrought iron gate, all black lines and clean welds sitting right where my property marker says it should. Concrete was still curing from the pour I'd finished 3 days back, everything exactly by the book. Permit tucked in my back pocket, official surveyor map clipped to the fence post for good measure. Felt pretty damn proud, if I'm being honest. I wasn't even done admiring the job when the convoy rolled in 3 white SUVs, HOA magnets slapped on the sides like cop cars, tires crunching over my gravel like they owned it. The lead one screeches to a stop right at my marker, just inches off, and I remember thinking, this can't be real. They must have been watching me waiting. Turns out I wasn't wrong. Out steps Karen Morrison herself. Mid-50s, silver hair yanked so tight in a bun I could almost hear it creak. Navy blazer, expensive shoes, looking every inch the lawyer she used to be before she decided running the Maplewood HOA would be more rewarding than real estate litigation. Clipboard in hand, that kind of weaponized smile, and a voice that could probably etch glass. "I told you not to install this," she snapped, barely glancing at my handiwork. And just like that, she hands me a violation notice right there in my own driveway while I'm still holding the wrench. You know what I mean? 30 minutes. That's how long I got to enjoy my own damn gate before the cavalry showed up. 30 minutes to breathe before the storm. The notice official letterhead, raised logo. All the trappings said I was in violation of Section 12.3. Now, I've managed construction projects longer than most people keep a job, so I'm not exactly new to paperwork. I set my wrench down, wiped my hands, tried to keep my voice steady, even though my chest was about to explode. "Good morning, Karen," I said, not rising to her bait. "This gate is fully permitted by the county, surveyed, installed on my property, all within the legal parameters. Everything's documented." Did she care? Not a bit. She gave my permit a lazy flick like it was a dirty napkin. "County permits don't override HOA covenants." "Mr. Rogers," she shot back, waving her clipboard like a scepter. "I thought we made that clear 6 months ago." And behind her, the 2 enforcers' polo shirts matching khakis clipboards, cameras fanned out across my property like I just buried a body out back. One measured the gate. The other snapped photos of everything from my gate to the pile of tools I hadn't even cleaned up yet. It was like watching some weird episode of Law and Order Suburbia. Now here's where it got really interesting. Section 12.3 is about fence height, I reminded her. Pulling out the printed covenant original specs, highlighted every page, reviewed a dozen times. This is a gate, not a fence. And it's well within the allowable height. Karen's smile just got sharper. "That section was amended in March," she said, eyes narrowed. "All residents received certified mail notification. The new rules specifically prohibit any barrier installation without written board approval." March. Of course, the one damn month I was 800 miles away, standing in a frozen Ohio graveyard, putting my father in the ground. I hadn't seen a single piece of certified mail. I never received any amendment notification, I told her. I was gone most of March. She didn't blink. "Postal Service delivery confirmation says otherwise. March 15th, certified mail return receipt. Your signature on file." Now that's when the knot formed in my gut. Not my signature I managed, though I could already hear how it sounded like I was making excuses. But proving it, that would mean telling them I'd been away, vulnerable, not watching my mailbox. And Karen, well, she saw the opening. "You have 48 hours to remove this structure or face daily fines, $500 per day, until compliance." Just as she dropped that bomb, footsteps crunched the gravel. Here comes David Thompson, board member, average guy, khakis. Thinning brown hair, the kind of face you lose in a crowd. "Excuse me, folks," he said with that soft Midwest lilt. "Noticed the commotion. Thought I might help mediate." He looked at me with a kind of sympathy I hadn't seen from anyone else that morning. And for a second, things almost felt reasonable. David extended his hand, firm, not aggressive. Robert Rogers, Wright Construction Management background. He remembered. Sometimes these things can be worked out through discussion, not just enforcement. I explained my permits, the survey, the whole 9 yards. What I didn't get, I said, was how a covenant amendment could be binding if I never got notice. David's eyebrows went up. You didn't get the certified mail, no email, no phone notification, nothing. Karen was ready for that. Delivery confirmation doesn't lie, Mr. Rogers. Postal issues aren't our problem. But David wasn't letting it go. We have had mail delivery problems lately, route changes, missed deliveries. He gave Karen a look, pointed, meaningful. Maybe we should verify the notification records before proceeding. For a moment, I caught something in Karen's face, panic maybe, but she covered it quick. Enforcement has already been initiated, she insisted. Mr. Rogers has his deadline. David didn't flinch. Or we could place a temporary hold while I review the documentation work with Robert to find a solution. His voice was calm, steady, and the two enforcers were already packing up, eager to leave. Karen shot him a glare, then handed him a manila envelope of photos. Fine. You have 24 hours. If Mr. Rogers isn't in compliance, enforcement proceeds as scheduled. She left with all the drama she'd arrived with convoy tires marking up my new driveway. David lingered, looking apologetic. I'm really sorry about this, he said. Karen can be intense. Let me buy you coffee tomorrow. We'll figure this out. As he walked off, my neighbor Helen Williams strolled up, coffee mug in hand, smile dry as sandpaper. Hell of a show, she said, waving her phone. I recorded the whole thing in case you need documentation. I thanked her, my first real sign that I wasn't alone in this mess. The thing is, when you've spent years on job sites, you learn to smell a setup. This felt personal, like someone had laid a trap, and I'd just triggered it. And the question that kept burning through me was if they'd been watching close enough to catch me the second my gate was done, what else were they watching, and why? Sunday morning, bright and early, 8 a.m. sharp. Karen shows up again. Hand delivers the violation notice this time. Her face just as hard, her voice even colder. No chit-chat, just 3 pages of legal threat and an attachment, the amended covenant from March, with language that now prohibited any barrier structure over 12 inches without board approval. That meant not just my gate, but fences, walls, even decorative posts, anything above garden height. I pointed out that the original covenant allowed up to 6 feet, and that this amendment would basically eliminate meaningful security. Property security isn't an HOA concern, Karen said. Community aesthetic standards are. If you wanted security, maybe you should have picked a different neighborhood. Subtle as a brick, right? I told her I'd like to appeal. Submit in writing within 72 hours, she said, eyes glued to her clipboard. Next board hearing December 15th, 3 months out. Meanwhile, $500 a day would rack up. That's $45,000 before I'd even get a chance to argue. Just then David showed up neutral as ever, but I could tell he'd caught enough of the conversation to have an opinion. Robert, about what I found, let's walk through it. He'd been digging into the notification records and found discrepancies. He said, several residents hadn't gotten their certified mail delivery logs. Didn't match up, routes had changed. Karen's face flashed surprise, then she turned to ice. Postal issues don't invalidate notification, she said. But David pushed, they do raise questions, especially on changes as significant as these. And I can't find the section in the bylaws that says what happens when certified mail fails. The air was brittle between them. Karen tried to punt procedural questions, can wait for tomorrow's board meeting. Enforcement proceeds as scheduled. She walked off heels, snapping the tension right off my porch. David watched her leave, then turned to me. She's not usually this inflexible, he said. Any idea why I shrugged? Who knows what motivates these folks? But I was starting to see this wasn't just about a gate. David showed me a photo of a document board meeting minutes from March. The amendment was proposed, discussed, and passed in a single emergency session, no warning, no resident input. supposedly due to security concerns, but no specifics, no police reports, just vague mentions of ongoing investigations. It looked to me like someone wanted power and fast. I asked him why he was helping me, really. Because when procedures get bent, everyone suffers, he said. Today it's your gate, tomorrow someone's deck, next month my fence. Nobody wins when rules are arbitrary. Reasonable answer? Or maybe calculated? I couldn't tell yet. But he offered to handle the notification issue from the inside and told me to consider getting my own lawyer just in case. Said he'd call after the board meeting. That evening I noticed something odd. David's house was on the premium loop right next to the community access road. Did some digging, pulled county records. His property backed right up to the only road leading to my section. Then I found out the HOA leased the easement for $1 a year, but the easement could be sold. If someone bought it, they could choke off access for 37 homes unless they felt charitable. And who had just bought it? Thompson Holdings, LLC, David Thompson's shell company. Now the whole thing made sense. David needed my gate gone so he could control access, boost his property value, and shut out the rest of us if he felt like it. Karen needed my gate gone because it showed she wasn't the only one with power. I was caught in the middle of a war I didn't even know was happening. But as anyone who's spent time on job sites knows, when you're up against a wall, you don't panic. You get creative. So Monday morning rolls around, and I'm still running on maybe 3 hours of sleep, if you can even call it that. My brain's just chewing over every angle, easements, bylaws, Karen's power plays, and David's too slick sympathy. I'm sipping coffee at my kitchen table, the violation notice spread out like evidence, when my phone buzzes David right on the dot, 7:30 a.m. His voice is all warmth and concern, like he's checking in on a sick friend. Robert. Good news, the board agreed to postpone enforcement while we review the notification process. Karen wasn't thrilled, but the insurance company's nervous about potential liability. For a split second, I feel relief. Maybe the system still works if you rattle enough cages. How long will this take, I ask. A week or two, he says. I need to pull all the postal records, verify the emergency session. But hey, let's meet tomorrow. Go over the paperwork together. Corner Grounds Cafe, 8:30. I agree mostly because I want to look this guy in the eye. Away from the circus. But that night, instead of sleeping, I'm up until 2 a.m. again, running county records, cross-checking addresses, poring over property maps, looking for whatever it is my gut's telling me I'm missing. 15 years in construction, you learn to trust your instincts. And something's off about David, about his house right beside that community road. About how he was the first to show up at my violation. About how easily he offered to help. The next morning I walk into Corner Grounds and he's already there, coffee waiting, manila folder laid out, looking every bit the concerned neighbor. Robert, glad you could make it. Take a look at these delivery records. He slides over a stack of papers, postal logs, driver schedules, signatures, official as can be. He points to March 15th. See, your section's carrier was reassigned substitute driver, unfamiliar with certified procedures. Multiple deliveries marked completed, actually returned to sender. Plausible, right? It is almost too plausible. If I hadn't just spent hours digging through easement records, I'd have swallowed it whole. But now I know David's not just an honest broker. He's got skin in this game and he's playing for keeps. He hands me a set of appeal forms, beautifully prepared legal language challenging the notification, a formal suspension request. All I'd have to do is sign, submit, and, well, that's the thing, isn't it? Something in my gut tells me not to sign, not until I check every word. Still, I play along, thanking him for his help, telling him how much I appreciate someone standing up to arbitrary authority. He gives me a little smile, says, "No one should face enforcement without proper procedure." Oh, and have you thought about your long-term security? About how much you depend on that access road? And there it is, a shift. From sympathy to a business pitch almost. He packs up promises to keep me in the loop, and I leave with a polite handshake, but I'm already thinking, who is this guy really looking out for? When I get home, I call the county clerk. About the Maplewood Community Access Road, I say. The woman on the other end doesn't even hesitate. That easement was purchased from the county last month, October 3rd. Thompson Holdings, LLC. $25,000 just like that. David's company, private transaction, full rights. Now the game is in the open. He's not helping me. He's managing me, keeping me occupied while he locks down control. And the helpful appeal paperwork, when I compare it to the actual bylaws that night, I find dates changed by a day, references to non-existent sections, wording that sounds legal but isn't. Booby-trapped, plain and simple, designed to fail in front of the board, guaranteeing my appeal gets tossed. That way my gate goes, my cameras go, and David gets a clear shot at controlling the only road in or out. I don't get mad, I get busy. Next morning, I call up Janet Clark, old colleague turned real estate attorney, and ask her to review the appeal documents. She calls back after an hour, her voice low and serious. Robert, whoever wrote this did it deliberately. None of the references are correct, and the board would see right through it. You'd lose on the spot. Then I call the county recorder for all the documents on Thompson Holdings, LLC, and I put in a call to a private investigator, a specialist in background checks, document fraud, paper trails. By Thursday night, I've got a pile of ammo and a plan. Turns out Helen Williams, the neighbor with the coffee mug and the phone, hadn't just recorded Karen's first drive-by for fun. She'd been documenting HOA abuses for months, collecting evidence on Karen, targeting residents, ignoring her friends' violations, and even capturing audio of Karen and David plotting enforcement strategies. She's got photos, timelines, video, enough to burn them both down if things get ugly. We meet in her kitchen Friday morning and she spreads out the evidence like a teacher prepping a lesson plan. Karen's been planning this since you moved in, she says, pointing to a photo dated 6 months ago before I'd even closed on the house. Karen and David, clipboards in hand, standing on what was about to be my property, measuring scoping plotting. They were counting on you needing security, Robert, Helen tells me. It's the only way David gets the county to sell him that road. If you have a gate, he can't argue that security isn't a community priority. But if he gets rid of your gate, well, suddenly he can make his case. That's when it all snaps into focus. It's never been about my gate. It's always been about the road and control. That night, David calls soft syrupy, just checking in. Just wanted to make sure you're ready for tomorrow's board meeting, Robert. Maybe a little humility will help things go your way. Right. He wants me to walk in, take my medicine, and fold in front of the whole HOA. Instead, I set my own trap. I call him back in the morning, voice shaky, deferential. Maybe I've been going about this all wrong, David. Maybe I do need your help presenting my case. He bites immediately, invites me to his home for a noon meeting, offers to coach me on how to plead my case. I spend the next hour prepping every device I have, voice recorders, backup camera, the works. I want everything documented because I know the real show isn't tonight's board meeting. It's what happens in David Thompson's home office when he thinks he's about to win. Let me tell you, David's place is exactly what you'd expect from a guy who wants to run the show. 2-story colonial white pillars, polished brass backyard that opens up to the community road like a stage. He welcomes me and pours coffee, ushers me into a leather chair facing the big window. And as he sits behind his desk, spreading my rigged appeal documents in front of me, I hit record. We spend a half hour going over strategy, really. He's coaching me on how to tank my own appeal, what language will sound best to the board, how to show I'm willing to work within the system. I play the role nodding, asking questions, even asking him about the road. Anything I should know, David. About maintenance, long-term access, reliability. His fingers drum the desk. He's trying to figure out if I know. Finally, I just say it. I did a little research, David. Turns out the county easement was sold last month to your company. The color drains from his face. He tries to cover, that doesn't affect your situation with the board. I pull out my phone and show him the app recording everything. You've been coaching me to submit fraudulent documents, David, and I've got you on tape. That's when his mask drops. No more Mr. Nice Guy, just cold hard calculation. What do you want? He finally asks. I tell him, You're not the only one who knows how to file the right forms at the county. There's a second surveyed access route. I bought it yesterday, paid the fee, filed the paperwork, expedited by cashier's check. Now I own the alternate easement, which means if you try to shut out the community, I can shut you out instead. And I've got the documents to prove it. His whole posture sags. You can't do that, he whispers. The county won't allow multiple transfers. They will, I say. First come, first served. And I've already got the deed. He begs for reason, but I walk out, leaving him standing at his window, staring at a future that just slipped through his fingers. That night, I pack a folder with everything: David's appeal documents, Helen's evidence, Janet's legal analysis, the county's deed to my new easement. The board meeting's set for 7 p.m., but before that, I want to make sure David knows I'm not bluffing. I call him early, voice humble, defeated, asking for last-minute advice. He eats it up, says he'll be there for me, ready to help at the meeting. But the real plan is already in motion. I call the county, confirm the process for easement transfer offers. Call my bank, arrange a cashier's check. The trap is set. And by the time Friday night rolls around, I've staged everything: the documents, the recordings, the timeline, ready for the public reveal. Friday night comes on like a slow-building storm, sky gone gold and purple, whole neighborhood humming with that pre-show tension. I'm posted up just out of sight, watching the parking lot fill. David rolls in right on cue, Karen right behind him, convoy style. I wait till they're both inside the community center, then make my move. But I don't walk straight in, not yet. First, I take a minute to breathe, to feel the weight of what's about to go down. I've got a case full of files, deeds, photos, legal opinions, audio recordings, timelines, proof that this wasn't just a little squabble over a fence, but a conspiracy start to finish. I think about all the little moments that brought me here. The thump of Karen's SUV tires in my driveway, the fake sympathy in David's handshake, the ache in my gut when I realized how badly they'd underestimated me. You know what I mean? Sometimes the best kind of revenge is showing up with all the receipts. I head inside. Helen's already there, front row, her phone out, a quiet look that says showtime. The room's packed, neighbors who never bothered with meetings, old folks, young families, even a couple of folks from the next development over, curious about all the drama. Karen's up front in her trademark blazer, trying to look like she's got it all under control, but her eyes keep darting to David, who's sweating bullets in his corner. Karen starts the meeting with her usual routine, reading the agenda, laying out proper procedures, acting like none of the past week ever happened. But the crowd's restless, and when she starts in about recent concerns regarding property access and community harmony, a low rumble builds. I wait till she tries to move on, then I stand up in the back. Before we talk about procedures, maybe we should talk about how we all got here, I say. My voice is steady, calm, but carrying. I walk to the front, drop my folder on the table. My name's Robert Rogers. 6 days ago, the HOA tried to force me to remove a legally installed gate on the grounds that I'd violated a covenant amendment that I never received. Tonight, I'd like to show you how that enforcement action was planned and why. A hush falls. Karen opens her mouth to object, but I hold up my hand. With respect, Karen, I've got evidence that concerns every homeowner here. Audio recordings, property records, photographs, proof that the March Amendment wasn't about security, but about setting up a private road grab that would have let one board member cut off access to 37 families. Proof that the appeal paperwork I was handed was designed to fail. Ben Smith, my attorney, is right beside me, clicks his laptop, and suddenly the wall's alive with images. We start with the timeline board minutes, showing the emergency session, the amendment passing with no real discussion, no public input. Then the county deed showing Thompson Holdings LLC acquiring the only easement into half the neighborhood for $25,000 1 month before the enforcement blitz. Next, security footage, Helen's recordings of Karen and David scoping my property, plotting with clipboards in hand before my gate was even installed. You could hear a pin drop except for a couple of gasps, neighbors muttering to each other, recognizing the faces, the timeline. Karen's lawyers shuffle their papers, pale as ghosts. David looks like he's about to bolt, but Ben cues up the kicker audio of David in his own voice, explaining how compliance actions encourage strategic sales and how some properties might need a little pressure to keep the development profitable. That's when the room comes alive. Neighbors start shouting, some at Karen, some at David, some at each other. Stories bubble up about mysterious violations, about fines that seem to vanish for some, but not for others, about sudden talk of improvements and cooperation tied to vague threats. Karen tries to gavel the meeting down, but it's too late. The evidence is out. The questions have started. She's cornered her attorneys, whispering that she should shut the meeting down. This is all being taken out of context, she says, but it's empty. Nobody's buying it. Ben lays it out step by step. How the appeal paperwork David gave me was a trap. How the road purchase was the real motive. How the amendment was timed to prevent residents from installing any kind of security that might document the land grab. Finally, I lay down the last card, my own deed signed and sealed to the alternate access route with full county authority. Ladies and gentlemen, I have no intention of blocking anyone's access, but I want you all to see how close you came to being locked out of your own homes, all because 2 board members thought they could outsmart the rest of us. Not anymore. The applause that follows isn't wild. It's angry, relieved, and just a little scared. Because now everyone knows how much power these people wielded in secret and how easily it could happen again. Karen can't take it. She storms out, lawyers in tow, refusing to answer questions. David slinks out the side door, no more swagger in his step. The meeting breaks up in chaos, but as folks leave, one after another comes up to shake my hand, pat my shoulder, thank me for standing up. Helen squeezes my arm. You just saved this neighborhood, she whispers. That night I sleep for the first time in a week. Deep, heavy, no dreams. Saturday morning, Karen's at it again this time, going door to door, hand delivering notices for a special community meeting to clarify recent misunderstandings. But it's too late. The federal investigators are already in the neighborhood talking to residents, collecting statements, building a case. By Sunday night, Ben's at my place bringing copies of everything to prep for Monday's showdown. Robert, this isn't just an HOA problem, he says. This is real estate fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy. The feds are going to take it from here. He lays out the evidence, David's admissions, the timeline, the fake signatures on the amendment receipts, the money trail from Thompson Holdings. It's airtight. All we have to do tomorrow is present it methodically, calmly, and let Karen dig her own grave. Monday comes and the community center is packed. More cars than I've ever seen, neighbors, shoulder-to-shoulder folks standing in the hallway, all there to see how this ends. Helen and a crew have cameras set up ready to record every minute. Karen walks in, last black dress, not a hint of her usual swagger, flanked by lawyers. No sign of David. She tries to control the meeting, but the room isn't having it. Let's get to the real issue, someone shouts. What have you done with our access? Ben and I step up, and this time we take it slow. Slides, maps, timelines, audio, every detail, no stone unturned. When it's over, you can see it in the faces, shock, fury, disbelief, and then a slow collective understanding. The room explodes. People are shouting questions, demanding resignations, calling for criminal charges. Karen tries to shut it down, but Tom Bradley, retired teacher, stands up, voice shaking. We want to vote tonight. In the chaos that follows, it's unanimous. Karen's out. Helen is in as emergency HOA president. And before the meeting is even over, neighbors are organizing an oversight committee promising to audit every file, every expenditure, every decision made in the last 3 years. By the end of the night, Karen's gone, her car peeling out of the lot. The board is dissolved, a new election's set. Ben stays late, answering questions, collecting more stories of harassment and selective enforcement. It's clear now Karen and David's plan wasn't just about my gate or the road. It was about turning the whole neighborhood into a cash cow, no matter who got hurt. When I finally get home, the street is quiet, the air sharp. My gate stands right where I built it. Iron strong, perfectly level, exactly where it should be. I run my hand over the bars, feeling the smooth welds, the cold steel. For the first time since this started, I know this is my home. No one's taking it away. By Tuesday morning, it's like someone flipped a switch overnight. Maplewood goes from tense and paranoid to almost celebratory. You can feel it walking down the block, neighbors waving, a couple folks mowing their lawns who I hadn't seen outside in months. Helen's already calling for volunteers for a community garden. Tom's fixing up his deck without worrying about getting slapped with a violation. It's not perfect, not yet, but the shadow hanging over the place is finally starting to lift. Federal charges come down hard and fast. Ben's at my kitchen table reading off the counts like he's reciting an old ballad: conspiracy to commit real estate fraud, extortion, wire fraud against David Thompson, conspiracy, abuse of fiduciary duty, and even mail fraud for Karen. Yeah, it turns out faking signatures on certified mail is a federal offense. The feds aren't playing games. Word spreads that both of them are looking at real prison time, plus fines big enough to bankrupt a king. It's not just about punishment. The whole neighborhood rallies around Helen, who gets elected HOA president in the kind of unanimous vote you only see when people are really truly done with the old way of doing things. First act. She hires an outside audit firm, brings in transparency rules, sets up a website where every resident can see every dime spent, every letter sent, every decision made. Second act. She forms a resident committee to review every past fine, every violation, and no surprise, half of them get thrown out for being bogus. The mood in Maplewood shifts fast. People who used to tiptoe around afraid of Karen's enforcers suddenly feel bold. Little things like families painting their mailboxes, fixing fences, chatting on the sidewalk instead of peeking from behind blinds. There's a potluck on my street a week after Karen's fall, kids running around, old folks laughing. Even folks from neighboring developments show up curious about this new Maplewood. I get a letter from Ben's law firm, official as can be. Turns out David's being forced to liquidate his development company, and the settlement he offers covers not just my legal costs, but restitution for everyone he targeted. The man who wanted to own the road now has to sell off his premium property just to pay the bills. One morning, a county inspector shows up, a woman named Jennifer Hayes, not much older than 30, sharp eyes, gentle smile, clipboard in hand. Mr. Rogers, the county wants to do a final inspection, make sure your gate's up to code. She walks the line, takes photos, checks every bolt, every boundary marker, flips through my permit folder like she's grading an exam. When she finishes, she grins. Honestly, Mr. Rogers, this is one of the best installations I've seen. Everything's not just compliant, it's exemplary. She says the county will issue a certificate, and as she heads back to her truck, I feel something deep and quiet, like I've finally come out the other side, not just surviving, but actually winning. A couple days later, walking the neighborhood, I bump into Tom Bradley. He's nailing up boards on a new deck, sweat on his brow, smile on his face. "Robert, you saved us," he says. "For months I thought about moving, packing up, giving up. Now I'm building again. My grandkids will have a place to play." That's when it really sinks in. This wasn't just about my gate. It was about giving people their home back, their sense of safety, their future. At the community garden site, Helen is rallying folks, beds being built, soil poured, everyone chipping in. We're making this a place anyone can use. She tells me a space for everyone to plant, grow, and harvest. No more secrets, no more threats. The energy is infectious. People who never talked are suddenly collaborating, sharing tools, recipes, jokes. I help Helen set up a rain barrel, and for the first time in ages, I feel like I belong, not just as a guy defending his corner, but as a neighbor, a builder, part of something bigger. Meanwhile, word gets out about our fight. Other developments call asking for advice on reform, on running a transparent board. Helen posts our new policies online, and pretty soon folks from across the county are sharing their own HOA war stories, banding together for change. The feds even cite Maplewood as a model for community-driven reform. Turns out when you stand up to a bully and document everything, you don't just fix your block, you show people everywhere how to do it. The legal drama drags on for months, but Ben keeps me updated. David tries to cut a deal, but the evidence is too overwhelming. Feds want real time, real restitution, no easy way out. Karen predictably claims she's innocent to the last, even as residents testify, even as her lawyers start talking plea deals behind closed doors. But what matters to me most is the quiet. The slow sunrise over my gate, the way kids ride their bikes past, waving like they always should have. One evening as I'm locking the gate, Helen calls, her voice bright, hopeful. Robert, the votes and the alternate access road you bought is being renamed Rogers Way. It's official. The neighborhood wanted to thank you for everything. I'm not sure what to say. Part of me feels like I don't deserve it, but Helen's not having any of that. You did what nobody else could. You gave us back our home. Let us give you this one small thing. I stand there, sun setting over the street, the name painted fresh on the new sign. And for the first time since all this started, I let myself feel proud, not for outsmarting anybody, but for proving that sometimes, even in the most rigged game, an honest fight can still win. Weeks pass, seasons change, and life settles in ways I never expected. There are new faces on the block. Families who'd been scared off are now moving in, drawn by the stories of what happened, by the promise of fairness and community. The garden flourishes. Kids chalk up the sidewalk. Saturday mornings bring coffee and laughter instead of whispered rumors about who's next to get a citation. Every now and then someone stops me. Old, young, doesn't matter. They thank me, and every time I say the same thing, I just wanted to build a gate. And maybe that's all it ever was, a line in the dirt, a way to keep out the dark, a chance to remind people that what matters isn't who's in charge, but who stands up when it counts. Sometimes I think back to those first tense mornings, the sound of Karen's SUV, the sting of that violation, notice the cold sweat of realizing the whole system was rigged against me. I remember the panic, the anger, the way it felt to be watched, threatened, pushed to the edge. But I also remember the small kindnesses, the neighbor's coffee, Helen's steady support, the lawyer who dropped everything to help. In the end, those moments matter more than any board meeting or court verdict. That's the thing, nobody tells you about fighting back. It's never just your fight. It's your neighbors. Your kid's the old man down the street who just wants to fix his fence in peace. It's every family that wants to plant something and watch it grow, knowing nobody's going to rip it up for breaking some made-up rule. So yeah, maybe I started out wanting a little security, a little peace and quiet. But what I got was so much bigger, a real community, battered and bruised, but stronger than it's ever been. And if you're sitting out there listening to this, wondering if it's worth it to stand up when the odds look impossible, let me tell you it is. Sometimes all it takes is one good gate and a little bit of stubbornness. Rogers Way. Funny how life turns right. You know, some mornings now I just stand at the end of my driveway, coffee in hand, breathing in that steady golden light, and I catch myself half laughing at the whole thing. Never in a million years did I think a simple gate would flip a whole community upside down. Never thought I'd see a day when neighbors actually trusted each other again, when kids left their bikes leaning against my fence, when folks waved just because they were glad to be outside, not peeking through blinds afraid of another bogus violation. Life's funny that way. Sometimes you fight for something small, and it turns into something nobody can ever take away. It's the little things I notice now. Helen's laughter echoing across the new garden. Tom's grandkids tearing around his deck, the fresh sign at the corner Rogers Way. It's not about ego, believe me. I didn't want my name on anything but my own mail. But the neighbors insisted, and I understood. It's a reminder not of me, but of what we all did together. Proof that when regular folks get pushed too far, when someone finally says enough change can actually stick. The county inspection certificate arrives one bright morning, a thick, embossed document, gold seal and all. Jennifer Hayes even leaves a note. Thanks for setting a new standard, Mr. Rogers. I frame it in the entryway not because I want to gloat, but because it's proof that doing things right matters, even when it feels like the world's built to reward cheats. Meanwhile, the legal fallout keeps rolling. The news spreads beyond Maplewood local papers, then regional ones, then HOA forums online. Stories of Karen's downfall, David's fraud, The new board's reforms, even the way Helen's audit committee uncovered years of hidden discretionary spending. And suddenly I'm fielding calls from folks in 3 states, some asking for advice, some just needing to know it's possible to win when you're outnumbered. Ben Smith, my attorney, becomes something of a legend. Himself turns out he's helping 2 other communities take on their own little emperors. The feds stay in touch too, letting us know every step as Karen's and David's cases crawl through the courts. Restitutions paid out, fines collected, and those 2, well, their world shrinks to lawyers' offices and courtrooms. The rest of us just get on with living. Helen's first year as president brings more changes than the last 10 combined. Every financial record goes public. All major decisions are put to a vote with meetings streamed online so nobody gets left out. Fines drop to near zero because turns out most folks just needed a conversation, not a threat. Property values bounce back. Then surge, local agents start calling us the comeback block, and buyers who once ran from HOA start asking to move in. But the best changes are the ones nobody writes about. It's the open garage doors on Saturdays, the bake sales for the local food bank, the veterans' flags waving on Memorial Day with no threats about unapproved polls. It's the garden benches, the way kids chalk, welcome home on the sidewalks for new neighbors, and the laughter at dusk as people linger in driveways, not wanting the day to end. There's a part of me that still bristles when I remember what they tried to pull. How close David came to locking us out. How Karen weaponized fear. How those board meetings turned into interrogations instead of conversations. But more and more I find myself letting that go. What matters now is the after, the stubborn, hopeful after. The reminder that justice can win, that decent folks can band together and rewrite the rules. Even now, the whole story follows me. I'll be at the grocery store or waiting at the post office and someone will tap my shoulder. You're the gate guy, right? They want to know how I did it, how we all did it. My answer's always the same. Never stop documenting, never stop asking questions, and never fight alone. And sometimes on quiet evenings, I just sit on my porch, feeling the cool iron of that gate, listening to the hum of a neighborhood finally at peace. Helen might drop by with a pie or Tom with an update on his tomatoes. Every now and then someone new walks up, hands me a cold drink, says, "Thanks, neighbor," and sits a while just soaking in the peace we all worked so damn hard to earn. Maybe that's what community really means. Not perfection, not power. Just the stubborn courage to look out for each other even when the world's full of Karens and Davids and all the little tyrants who think paperwork is power. Maybe it's knowing that if you fight for what's right, no matter how small, you build something that lasts longer than any rule book. Sometimes late at night when I lock the gate for the last time, I look out at Rogers Way, golden under the streetlights, calm, ordinary, and strong. I smile, shake my head, and think, all that over a gate, huh? And I wouldn't trade a second of it. So if you ever find yourself up against the wall, maybe you're staring down a clipboard or some bully with a rule book, or just the creeping feeling that you don't belong, remember my story. Stand your ground, find your people, and build your own gate. You never know, the whole world might end up walking through it with you. Because sometimes the fight you never wanted ends up saving more than just your home. It saves your whole street. It saves your peace of mind. And once in a while, just once in a lifetime, it even saves your faith in the folks living right next door. Yeah, that happened. And I'd do it all again. After all that, after the board meetings, the lawyer calls the sleepless nights and the parade of county inspectors after the courtroom dramas and the press coverage and the headlines about Maplewood's gatekeeper life actually does go back to normal. Or maybe it's a new kind of normal, a better one. The first month after Karen and David are officially gone, the changes feel almost surreal. There's a lightness on the block. Neighbors linger over fences, swapping tomatoes and stories. Some of us who barely nodded before now wave every time. People work on their homes, real projects, real pride, no more dread of the HOA's clipboard brigade. Helen Williams, bless her, turns out to be the leader Maplewood needed all along. She brings coffee to every committee meeting, always listens first, and you can see how quickly the old fear gets replaced by trust. The garden project explodes, kids planting seeds, neighbors swapping starter plants, the community coming together like I never thought possible. We even get a mural painted on the utility shed, a winding fence, blooming flowers, and a cartoon iron gate dead center painted by the local middle schoolers. It makes me laugh every time I walk by. Ben Smith keeps popping by with updates on the legal case. David's looking at several years. Karen's holding out for a trial, but everyone knows how that'll end. Restitution funds trickle in not just for me, but for anyone who lost money or property value to their schemes. Folks who were nearly forced out get a second chance to stay. The new board does things different. Every meeting is public decisions posted online, all finances open for anyone to see. Fines don't vanish entirely, but now they come with warnings, options, actual conversations. Most times a quick chat or a cup of coffee sorts things out before any letter ever gets mailed. Imagine that actual neighborliness instead of threats. And the alternate access road Rogers Way, as the sign proudly reads, becomes a symbol for all of it. At first it's just a street, but as time goes on, folks start using it for more than just a shortcut. Kids chalk up hopscotch grids, teens play street hockey, parents walk babies and strollers under the trees. In summer, it becomes the parade route for our little 4th of July celebration. We even put up twinkle lights and have a barbecue in the middle of the street with everyone invited, no board member needed to approve. I'd be lying if I said there aren't still challenges. The world's full of folks like Karen, folks like David, people who think paperwork trumps decency, who'd rather rule than serve. But there's something different about us now, like we've all figured out we can push back. That when we stand together even a little, even quietly, we don't have to let anyone run us over. And me. Well, I still keep the gate oiled and gleaming. Every morning I check the hinges, run my hand along the top rail just to remind myself how all of this started. Sometimes I chuckle thinking about how much grief a couple of iron bars caused and how much good they ended up doing. There are days when it hits me, really hits me how close we all came to losing this. Not just a road or a bit of land, but our sense of belonging, our confidence that the place we live is ours to shape. All for the sake of a little power, a little profit. But here we are, living proof that you can take it back if you refuse to give in. I'm not the hero in all this. I was stubborn, sure, maybe a bit of a pain in the neck, but what made the difference was everybody else. Helen, with her evidence files, Tom refusing to quit Ben burning the midnight oil, even the neighbors who baked pies and left them on my porch after every win. That's what saved us. That's what made Maplewood more than just another subdivision. It made us a community again. And every so often when I walk out at night, the moon lighting up that sign, Rogers Way, I stop, lean on the fence, and think about how much changed and how grateful I am for every single neighbor who chose to stand up and say no more. Sometimes the only thing between a bully and a better world is a gate and a handful of folks crazy enough to believe things can get better. So if you're out there listening, thinking you're alone in your fight, remember this: one small stand, one bit of stubbornness, one honest gate. That's all it takes to start something bigger than yourself. Maplewood's peaceful now. My gate's still standing. The grass is growing back where the convoy's tires scarred my driveway. And every day I hear laughter, see kids playing smell barbecues, and know we did something worth doing. That's my story, the whole messy, beautiful, ridiculous thing. Would I do it all again? In a heartbeat. Because sometimes you don't just build a gate, you build a home. Time has a way of softening the sharp edges, you know. Weeks turn to months, and that old sense of dread, waiting for another notice, another knock, another fight, just quietly fades into memory. Life gets busy again, but it's a good kind of busy now. The garden beds Helen started are in full bloom, tomatoes and beans spilling over sunflowers, reaching higher than the stop sign on the corner. The new board has a rhythm, monthly meetings that are half social, half business. Always open to everyone, always a few laughs mixed in. The strangest thing is folks actually look out for each other now. It's not forced, not because anyone's watching, but because we've all seen what happens when you turn away, pretend it's not your problem. If someone's struggling with a repair, a handful of us show up with tools before they can even ask. If a kid's bike breaks, someone fixes it, leaves it leaning on the porch, no note needed. We've become the kind of neighborhood you hear about in old stories, imperfect, a little scrappy, but real. Every so often, news from the courthouse trickles in Karen's trial, David's sentencing. I hear she's still protesting her innocence, blaming everyone but herself, but nobody's really listening anymore. Her house sold quickly, the new owners joining right in a family with 2 loud dogs and even louder kids. No one minds the noise, it's the sound of freedom, a reminder that the bad days are over. Ben stops by every month or so, always with a new story from another HOA somewhere, someone else fighting the same battle. He tells me Maplewood's become a blueprint, an example he points to in every courtroom and town hall. You'd be amazed, Robert, he says. All over the state, folks are citing your story. They're standing up. They're winning. And sometimes I get letters from strangers, people who heard about us, watch the story unfold online or in the local news. They thank me, share their own wars with tiny tyrants, ask for advice, or just need someone to listen. I always write back. I tell them the truth. It's not about the gate. It's about not letting fear win. About building alliances, trusting your gut, and documenting everything even when it feels like nobody cares. Because the day always comes when somebody does care, and that's when everything can change. One evening, not long after summer fades to fall, we hold a potluck right out on Rogers Way, tables strung together, paper lanterns, glowing dishes from every kitchen in the neighborhood. Helen gives a little toast, nothing fancy. She just thanks everyone for believing that a handful of stubborn people can still make a difference. This, she says, waving her glass at the laughter, the music, the pie stains on the tablecloth. This is what winning looks like. As the stars come out and the air cools, I wander to the end of the street, lean on my gate, and look back at the warm lights, the shadows of my neighbors gathered together. And I realize I'm not watching for trouble anymore. I'm just watching life happen. That's a kind of victory no court could ever hand down. Sometimes I think about Karen, about David, about all the little ways they tried to control the narrative to make everyone believe. The rules were the most important thing. But the real rules, the unwritten ones, are what matter. Treat people fairly, don't lie. Help your neighbor stand up to bullies. That's how you build a street worth living on. I know there'll always be another challenge, some new rule, some new face, maybe even a fresh attempt to grab a little power. But I also know we're ready for it. We've got each other's backs now. We remember what it was like to be afraid, and we remember how good it feels to not be anymore. If you'd asked me all those months ago if I thought a gate could change an entire community, I'd have laughed. But now I see it every day, a small line in the dirt, a boundary, a beginning. It's not just metal and bolts, it's a symbol of what happens when you hold your ground, tell the truth, and refuse to let the worst people set the tone for everyone else. So here's my last bit of advice for anyone listening, anyone struggling. You don't have to be the bravest or the loudest or the most important. You just have to be stubborn enough to do what's right and smart enough to find the people who'll stand beside you. Everything else follows. And as I turn back toward the lights, the music, the laughter floating through the night, I realize sometimes the best stories don't end with a bang, but with a quiet, hard-won peace and the simple joy of finally coming home. Yeah, that happened. And it was worth every fight.